Welcome to the Blueprint Tour, where we visit industry experts from all corners of the construction industry to overcome trust hurdles and build community. I'm Kenny Shultz, and this Season 3 episode was recorded live at the 2024 CREI Summit in Atlanta. If you're interested in using digital tools like social media, podcasting, email, and AI to drive your business development and real estate, you don't want to miss the 2025 CREI Summit happening in the beautiful Palm Desert, California. Now, let's get into today's conversation.
What I do is I just see you have a little no way going. I do distress loan workouts. I help sit people with problems with loans, like more complex stuff. More of advising people that have issues with the properties to resolve it.
If you are on Twitter, at Shlomo Chopp is with us today. Appreciate you swinging by. We're going to talk a little bit about debt on property, maybe non-performing distressed assets and how to get things going again.
Yep. Well, I wish I had the solution, how to get things going again, but we deal with what we have.
Yeah. So what does that look like? What's the most common thing you see that's a problem with the solution?
I think the biggest problem is when people see problems coming, they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the first rule of holes, when you're in it, stop digging.
Stop digging. So yeah. What does that look like? Like in a practical example.
I think if you have a challenge, I think one of the first things you need to do is assess how you got there to begin with. And yes, you lived through it, and yes, you know what's going on. But the reality is, if you sat down with a third party and you asked them what's going on, they'd give you a perspective you didn't have. The best thing you can do for yourself is try to get the perspective on your own and sort of figure out, okay, what happened here? How did it happen, right? It could be that at least 2 years ago when you negotiated really tough and didn't want to give the tenant a certain amount of leasing of tenant improvements. And they walked and went down the block and they pulled tenants down the block and you lost tenants in your property. Look back and say, wow, maybe now's the time to just focus on occupancy, right? Let's get some traction back here. And that's a property issue. People think like, you got a problem with a property, talk to the bank, talk to the financial guy. The financial guy can only deal with what you have beneath it, right? It's like at the end of the day, I'm not winning any awards for walking down the runway because I got what I got. It is what it is, right? So at the end of the day,
you either got a lease or not, basically.
There you go.
Yeah. And so, so are you consulting? Are you part of the lending itself, or are you consulting people when they find themselves in this situation to how to get tenants back and get rent roll going?
So I'm typically brought in when there's a challenge on the financing side, specifically on the loan side.
Okay.
On the tenant side, you need to hire a broker. Right? That's the key thing.
Yeah.
You need to hire a really good broker. And it's really hard, by the way, because brokers, when they don't make a lot of money, because the market's soft, they have to put in extra effort to get that one deal done. And you got to get their focus, and you got them to get the effort on your property. And then you got the landlord that, they don't have a lot of money and they have very high expectations, and then they slow paying the broker. So that becomes challenging. But the point is, when I'm brought in is when there's a problem on the debt side. Now, typically it starts because there's a problem on the property side. But ideally, I'm brought in about 90 days before the guy really has a problem that he needs to deal with the lender. And we step in, we pull apart the property, look at it from an operational perspective. Because we own property, we operate property. And then figure out a strategy to go to their lender and propose something that the lender will believe, not just that we actually are proposing it, the lender will believe that they're getting a better deal than they otherwise would have gotten.
Yeah. Are you restructuring, refinancing, and doing that part of it as well as
focusing on the restructuring side of it? The refinancing side of it, I don't really do. I can help with it. I prefer not to, because there's plenty of competent people out there. We do business with them, so let them eat, right? I'm hired mostly to deal with the restructuring the debt and focus primarily on pretty complex structures.
Okay. Walk me through see if I can try. I'm an engineer, so I'm pretty slow. See if I can hang.
There's a concept called CMBS, commercial mortgage-backed securities. We essentially, and if you watch The Big Short that goes through it, where they basically take a pool of loans that have cash flow coming from it, and you got all this cash, and you add 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, eventually you got $1 million in monthly cash flow, whatever it is that comes through. And that flows through to this trust. And then that trust, the way they are eligible for that cash flow, because they bought the loan. So they take all those loans, buy it from the guys that made it, give them a little profit, put it into this box, and they got all this income coming in. And then this trust, the way they fund the purchase of those loans is that they borrow money. So they issue bonds, basically debentures, to people, say, hey, we will pay you X amount of dollars over a period of time. So then you have these various bonds, you have different structures, different rights, and different things, there's different motivations. So when you default on one loan in this trust, there are parties that are hired to oversee these various loans in order to make sure the cash flow comes through to pay the bondholders, because if you default on the bond, then the trust is in default against the bond, and the trust has mechanisms to deal with it, of course. So when you're a borrower and you're trying to work on this, the trust is like, pay me, I got to pay these guys. And you're like, well, there's not enough cash flow in front of the property. So the trust says, okay, we'll go foreclose on you. And the borrower's like, well, you could have the property if you want, but the trust has no choice but to go and foreclose on the property. So you have to come up with a mechanism that solves for the bondholders, but you got to make sure that you're solving for the bondholders that still matter relative to what's going on here, because the property's not worth as much. So what happens with bondholders? Some bondholders are out of luck, some bondholders are doing well. So you structure a deal that's pretty complex. So while a borrower is like, I borrowed a $10 million loan, I typically don't work on stuff 10. Like the average loan I work on is probably 20, 30 and above, up to a few $100 million. But if I borrowed money, I got to pay it back, I can't afford, here's what it is, have a good day. In reality, it's way more complex. Like saying, oh, brain surgery, have my brain, fix the brain, we're good to go. No, there's a lot more to it. And that's where, that's how I pay my bills.
Wow. So how did you get involved with that?
Necessity is the mother of invention. In 2010, there wasn't much to do. I had an attorney said, hey, look into this. I opened up the docs. I read it cover to cover. I got help from a lot of people that helped me through the process. You just got to ask. People want to give back. They just don't want the time wasted.
Yeah.
And, got some people to give me a shot and did very well. And over 2016, it slowed down. And then over time, it just picked up now, in the past couple of years, and I've been crazy busy.
What do you see? What's the most common trend right now as in this era post 2021, where we are now in the economy and defaults in these packages?
I think the biggest challenge right now in the market is that really people don't have certainty as to where things are going, right? We know interest rates went up, and now we believe interest rates are going to start coming down, which is to an extent, you're basically saying, hey, New York City was a good place to be, New York City is a bad place to be, or whatever, but that's macro, that's not micro, right? So people don't really know, like, individually what's going to be. Office, what happens with office? Retail, e-commerce, what happens with that, right? All these various property asset classes, Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked, right? The tide went out because of interest rates, and that was an issue, and now people are like, okay, office is a problem, right? It wasn't really a problem until interest rates went up. Well, it was because of COVID, but again, it was the truth is, now I should take that back. It was a problem before, but it was exposed more because obviously, because due to cash flow and cash flow requirements and refinancing and all that stuff, and the cost of funds obviously exposed it to a certain extent. So I'm seeing a lot of people don't know where things are going. So therefore, if you're going to take a bet by paying off your loan, and you take a bet by restructuring your loan and putting up money on it, or a lender's not going to foreclose, you got to figure out like what's going to happen next. And some people are just too shy and say, I'll just hold on to my money and deal with it from there. So I think we need clarity. And clarity only happens after you miss the opportunity. So that's really the problem, right? Because clarity is looking back. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, hindsight. It's always that real good 20/20 vision, and you're like, oof, if only I had done this. It's like the love of life is
the only thing that solves a lack of clarity is greed. Right? If you think about it, no, seriously, it's like, why would you take a risk? Because you're greedy, right? And greed could be a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we talk about greed, it's so bad, right? Okay, great. But when people buy an asset to improve it, that's because they want to make money. It's not the bad part of greed, right? So you sort of shut off some of that risk side of your brain and focus on the opportunity.
Yeah.
Greed's not the right word. Let's use opportunity, right? You shut off your risk side of the brain and you focus on opportunity. When you don't see that opportunity clearly, then that risk side is just so prevalent and it overshadows. And it's a question, like the race to the bottom. Like who's gonna have their risk de-risked, or right? That's really what it is. Have the risk component de-risked, brought down to the point where you say, okay, now I could see some potential opportunity, or there's a reason to keep and hold on to what was there before.
Yeah. Yeah, so helping people find the opportunity and not become so overwhelmed with the risk or the pain that they're being faced with. I mean, just generally, that's good business advice too, when things are getting stressful. And to make a good decision running, our business is sometimes just, you see the risks and they're terrifying. But if you stop for a moment and look at there's this opportunity. Let's focus on that.
Michael Jordan, right? I missed 100% of the shots I never took.
Yeah, 1,000%. Michael Scott.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
But that's cool that makes sense. So you're part of this process. You come to the table and you kind of help people see opportunity. And is that part of the consulting that you're offering?
I help them de-risk the transaction to a certain extent, and also bring it to a point of where even if it's not de-risk for them, they realize that for the rest of the market or for the lender, it's less risky for the lender to take action that is counter to what they, the borrower, would like than to do the deal. And then they say, okay, either they get over it or they don't. And that's really a question, person by person. It's like, it's taste, it's not, you can't, there's no rules when it comes to taste or to style and things like that. So really it depends on a person by person basis. But listen, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the market right now. And that's, people that have always made wealth have bought it when there's been some type of opaqueness to the market. Right? When everything is clear, it's like, okay, you look at it. This is good. This is bad. Okay. Focus on the good. So there's a lot. And there's also here's another component, another great Warren Buffett quote. He talks about, miss the market. Miss the market comes from his mentor. And basically the saying that I've heard, at least in videos, Warren Buffett say is that, let's say I had a burger shop, right? And it's killing it. It's amazing. And I have it with a partner and it's doing great. And my partner comes over to me and he makes me an offer and he says, listen, I'm going to buy out your share for X dollars. And internally this is worth that the price he's offering is way higher than what the thing's worth. Sell it, right? There's, he's caught up in the craziness and wow, this is great. He's written up on all the papers that we're great. And then if let's say he comes over to you and just so happened that a couple of years later, this new restaurant opens across the way and there's lines out the door and your sales are down and he comes over and that's a flash in the pan. Maybe not the restaurant, but sort of the fact that they're getting so much attention, right?
Yeah.
And he goes and he says, this is tough. We're screwed. It's a problem. Let me, buy me out for pennies on the dollar. And that he's taking less than he should. Buy him out.
Yeah.
Buy him out, right? And that's Mr. Market. Mr. Market is the guy that reacts. And your goal is to transact. When others are greedy, you should get fearful. When others are fearful, you should get greedy. And that's the line. And, it's just, hey, if you can't listen to Warren Buffett, who can you listen to?
That's so true. The Mr. Market is the name of this person avatar that you're looking for, right? You're finding, is it Mr. Market?
Well, I think every investor needs to look at Mr. Market and see what Mr. Market is doing and saying, how can I almost play the guy? It's like a poker game, right? Is the guy bluffing? What is it like? What's going to be? And he's your counterparty, right? Mm-hmm. Stocks down. Listen, one day stocks market's down X percent. The other day it's up X percent. Did things really change day to day? It didn't. It's just the sentiment. It's just what's happened in the market. And that's we deal with distressed properties as well. The guy loses money on a property. He's like, oh, I'm done with this. I'm worn out. He can't, right? You could buy it off of him for a very good price because he's discounting the value of the property because he just wants out.
Yeah, it's just a headache. It's a down and out. Jason Dillard calls it. People that are willing to take the tax hit on it too and not even 1031 exchange. They just want out completely. And they're like, wow, look at it. These are under market rents. I mean, a little bit of money, we could get the rents up and buy it at this discount. And I guess Don talks about that. I don't know if you've watched that podcast. On the Fort podcast, he talks a lot about how he gets those retail buildings and looks for the opportunity where the rents are below market.
Yes.
And just buys and flips it that way.
Yeah. Listen, you can't make money if you're buying things that we're ultimately, you sell it at, right? So it's like, how do you make a profit? Your time, right? Time in the day, right? And sometimes people have different reasons for getting into deals. It's not just in real estate. It's across the entire everything. Like you have companies that merge because of the synergies and then the cultures just don't mesh, but they had this great idea they were going to merge, just the urge to merge, right? You just did a deal to do a deal. There's no real reason for some of that.
Yeah. Deal to do a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but listen, you need to buy low, you need to sell high. And the reality is that buying low means buying in a market where people are scared to buy. So if we're able to buy low and then sell high, you can't expect to be in a booming market and say, oh, everybody's buying it at $1. I'm going to buy it for 10 cents on the dollar. Like, good luck. You're wasting your time. And by the way, your expenses are outpacing everything. You got to pay your rent, you got to pay employees, you got to pay everything, and you're going to chase deals that don't exist. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that's really like there's real estate is very it's a business, right? It's not a passive thing, as a lot of people like saying.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fundamental that you just got to treat it as a business. Every day costs money. Time costs money. It's Edward Chancellor is a great historian when it comes to interest rates and things like that. And I think it's his term, or maybe somebody else, the price of time, right? Time is a price. Like when you get charged interest. Let's think. There's a great thing I think I just read. So I read from, I forgot who it was, but what's interest, right? When you charge interest to somebody or someone pays you interest, what are they paying you for?
I guess the time that they have your money.
Well, they're paying you for the right not to have to use their money today.
Yeah.
So they're paying you for the right to hold on to the money and defer it down the road. Which means you need to believe, therefore, that if I'm paying you 6%, let's say, okay, which is a good deal. If you want to lend me 6%, let's talk.
I know, I was going to say that.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, if you got 6% money, I'll take it.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly, right? Can you imagine? 6% was expensive a few years ago. But if I'm paying you 6%, that means that my cash that I'm holding on to now and not using has to earn me more than 6% between now and then. Otherwise, I just use my cash, right? So I have to earn more, right? So it's almost like, if you ever heard the term discount rate in cash flow analysis, discount rate means the rate that you must discount your return by in order to look at what you're really making. So 6% discount rate is like, okay, I'm paying 6%, so therefore I got to discount my yield by 6%. So you can make me X over. And that's really, that's why when you get banks quote new loans, they quote X over treasuries, right? Because they can invest in treasuries to make that return. What do they need? Well, you need to get involved with the real estate guy in that, right? So that's really there's a lot of interesting stuff. And I think one point that I was driving at before, it's coming back, is that real estate's a business. You need to know how to do it. You can't just put together deals from a bunch of different people and have issues. And that's going back to where we started. Like a lot of borrowers that I work with, and I usually don't take on these borrowers because they don't come from a place of sophistication, and it's really very hard to take their position. But a lot of borrowers just said, hey, let me syndicate, let me put money together, and let me go buy stuff, and then they have problems and they can't get themselves out of it, and they've dug themselves a hole that's too deep, and they don't understand how they got in and how they could get out, and that's a huge problem. So the key is to have really good infrastructure and really understand what you're doing before you actually invest in something. And that's probably the best advice I give to anyone. And that advice, it translates, right? If you're a small guy, don't get involved to buy real estate if you don't know what you're doing. If you're a big guy, don't take the most sophisticated loan docs that you don't understand that are going to constrict your operations on an ongoing basis. So that's what I do. And that's my day to day. And it's me.
That's, there's a book called Invest in Debt that Jason Dillard recommended to me, and that's where I finally learned the practical application of that time value money equation. I learned in engineering school, but we just did a couple calculations. But
check the box.
Yeah, right. And but this book really helped me. They went over the discount rate and how to put in, how to do the spread on the debt, or how to borrow against if you buy a note and you're buying it at a discount. All these cool things. I'm like, oh wow, I can't believe I didn't pay attention in that class a little bit more.
So you said you're an engineer.
I'm an engineer.
What type of engineer?
I'm mechanical. And electrical and software. I run kind of the engineering overall at our company, and by trade, I'm practicing mostly mechanical right now.
That's great. And then, so what's interesting? There's a podcast I got hooked on recently, the Acquirers podcast.
The Acquirers?
The Acquirers podcast.
Acquirers, yes. Okay.
Go check it out.
Okay.
And then you reach out to me and thank me.
Okay.
They do deep dives. Like the one I'd recommend, the episode I'd recommend first is one with Howard Schultz of Starbucks. It goes through his entire journey.
Okay.
Literally, and it's amazing. These guys are VCs, and I see you focused on obviously non-financial things. Obviously, not just an engineer focused just on your thing. You're looking to invest and looking to. That's really great. It talks about the history of Microsoft. Go deep dive in Jensen Huang with NVIDIA. Really great podcast. So and they ask a lot of questions of people that are very smart, and it's just. You listen to that, you just literally, you learn as you go on.
I'm definitely going to check that. We have to listen to it on the way home. We're driving back.
Yeah.
We're from Richmond, Virginia, so we got a long drive.
Well, there's 4 years of podcast. You'll never get through it, but here's another one. Howard Marks.
Okay.
Howard Marks is the CEO of Oaktree. Oaktree is a debt investment. I think it's mostly debt, private equity investment company. And Howard Marks for many years has written something called The Memo. It's his memo. He sends out information, right? Mm-hmm. And he also just translated it into a podcast where someone actually reads his memos on the podcast.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's fascinating. That's why I got TPOT, The Price of Time. Like, that's why I got turned on to Edward Chancellor. There's just some really, really great stuff. So he talks about what's going on in the market. He talks about just generally, how the markets are wrong when it came to interest rates, and he digs in on it, and really, really easy to listen. So there's some really great podcasts out there from some of the greats, really.
Have you listened to Trepwire?
I always listen to Trepwire. I've been on Trepwire.
Have you really? Okay.
Oh, nice.
I felt like I was on a Trepwire podcast. It was really cool. When you were talking, I listened to a few of them before we came up here because I hadn't heard of them and I knew they were going to be here.
Yeah. And
it's cool. They just the two that I had to listen to, they just pick notes that have gone into a different status of default or, imminent something, just looking
imminent
at
default, special servicing transfer,
Yes.
So CMBS, what I mentioned, I think that's their expertise. Actually, what Trepp does, Trepp actually has the data. They were one of the first guys that would process the data. Let me explain to you why. Because if I'm a bondholder in a trust, all I have is my bond. How do I know what it's worth? How do I do due diligence, right? So when you're a borrower borrowing from loans that will end up in that trust, you have requirements to report. That reporting goes to the trustee that oversees the trust. That's then processed into data. That data is sprung out to someone like Trepp that then provides it. See, it's called a Trepp report, right? And Trepwire, Lonnie's great. The whole team is great. Haley's great. I love them. They're friends. I just posted some picture on my social with them.
Oh yeah.
So
y'all should come in. We can record an episode if y'all want to do just y'all in here. I could be the guy press and record. We got it all set up because
no, you're set with them. You got enough of me over here, but you're set with them. We'll give them their space to do their thing.
Yeah.
But no, I'm grateful. I've done multiple things with them. I did a Trepwire podcast probably about a year and a half ago, and we just did a webinar with them as well.
Oh, cool.
Talking about the pitfalls of debt restructuring and things like that. So. Really big fan. I actually introduced them to the CREI Summit, and
really,
it's great. Yeah, and 100%.
Man, 100%. What a small world. This has been an awesome conversation. I did not expect to feel like I was listening to Trepwire. That's how that's why I brought it up.
Suggesting you thought I was going to be a letdown? Is that
no, not at all. I just didn't know how deep you would be willing to go with an engineer on some of the finance because I'm an engineer. I don't know much about it, so that was absolutely.
You're underestimating yourself based on the questions you asked. I think you know what you're talking about.
This is great. You got to follow Shlomo Chopp. It's right there. You can do it on Twitter. Anywhere else? Is it mostly Twitter?
I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. Those are my two places.
Awesome. I'll let you get back to the networking. We did 20 minutes. We were going to do 5.
Oh, really?
But we got a good 20-minute episode out of it.
When I'm talking, I'm having fun, apparently. So I know.
This is awesome. Shlomo, thank you so much, man. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to go listen back to that and take some notes.
Thank you so much.
I'll give you the air horn. See you next time.
Thank you, man.